What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today we're taking a look at the new Dragapult VMAX card, which is coming out in May in the Sword and Shield Rebel Clash set. This card is already out in Japan, and we're going to be taking a look at a few different ways decks can be built around it, looking at Japanese lists. So I've already covered Takuya Yoneda's list on this channel, and I've also done a match with the deck. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. I will have Takuya Yoneda's list in this video as well, but only briefly since I've already covered it on the channel. And we'll be taking a look at two other ways to build a list around Dragapult VMAX as well. First, I'd like to shout out PotownStore.com, my sponsor, and the best place for you to get PTCGO codes. They have a wide variety and great prices, and you can use code CELIO for 5% off. So, Dragapult VMAX, I know it's a card a lot of players are excited about, and so am I. It's very cool. It spreads damage. It doesn't really one-shot things, but it can take multiple knockouts in a turn, which is always neat to see, and it promotes non-linear strategies, which is nice for the game. So, looking at the basic version, Dragapult V coming in at 210 HP, Psychic Pokemon, of course. It does Bite for 30 for a Psychic Energy, and then Assault Jet 60 plus. If this Pokemon was on the bench, it became your active Pokemon this turn. This attack does 80 more damage, so that's 140 for 2 Psychic Energy, so it's honestly not that bad of an attack. But what we're really looking at here is Dragapult VMAX, which goes up by 110 HP to 320, and of course it is a 3 prize Pokemon card when knocked out instead of 2. The first attack, Shred, for 60 for 1 energy. This attack's damage isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, which can actually be very useful versus the Zamazenta V, which has the ability that stops damage from Pokemon VMAX. So Shred would actually go through it and deal 60 damage. And then Max Phantom for 2 Psychic Energy. It does 130 and put 5 damage counters on your opponent's benched Pokemon in any way you like. So essentially dealing a total of 180 damage for 2 energy, which is great. And it's spreading some damage to the bench however you like, and this deck has other ways to spread damage. Usually, no matter how you build Dragapult VMAX decks, you're going to be having ways to spread damage or move damage or something like that, so keep that in mind. We're not really looking for big knockouts with Dragapult VMAX. We're doing something a little more unique and something that I think is pretty cool, and I'm glad to see it coming into the game in more ways. So the first list we're going to take a look at is Takuya Yoneda's. I got this list from PokemonCardJP.com.au, and this list was used to win an 8-man invitational that Takuya Yoneda was part of. So I've already covered this list on the channel, like I said, but I definitely wanted to put it in here since it's a great list. It uses Team Yell Grunt to disrupt the opponent while you're slowly setting up your Dragapult VMAX, because in this list, the only way to attach energy is your manual attachment for turn, and Dragapult VMAX needs 2 energy for its main attack, so it takes 2 turns at minimum to power up your Dragapult VMAX, so you want to slow your opponent down sometimes with Team Yell Grunt. Even if it's not early on in the game, maybe you can Yell Grunt turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4 to set them back a little and maybe even out the playing field. It's using Force Scoop Up Net, which is a new card that can pick up any non-GX or non-V Pokemon. So things like the Galarian Zigzagoon that applies a damage counter when you play it down, or the Mewtwo with Mind Report that puts a supporter from your discard pile on top of your deck. It's also using the new Boss's Orders or Boss's Command, which I've seen it translated as, which gusts up a Pokemon, and this can also be used to disrupt a turn and let you set up a little, or it can be used to make for a multiple prize knockout turn, where maybe you did 130 and 50, and the next turn you bring up the thing you did 52 and reverse it and take multiple prize cards on multiple Pokemon. So very cool deck. I like how this one's built a lot. I think it's going to be the kind of the main build for Dragapult VMAX at first, unless another one comes out that looks really, really mainstreamed and consistent. But this one looks really good. I think it's going to be the main one, like I said, and now we're going to move on to the next Dragapult VMAX list I found from Japan. This is Takeshi Fuji's list, also from the same invitational that Takuya Yoneda won. So he's playing a 4-3 line of Dragapult VMAX instead of the 4-4, I'm sure. Not a huge difference there, but what is a huge difference is Takeshi was playing a 2-2 Malamar line, also with Gengar Mimikyu Tag Team GX, which in an interview, Takeshi Fuji said that he was playing the Gengar Mimikyu to slow down the opponent for a turn to allow him to set up his Dragapult VMAX with the Malamar on the following turn. So just like Takuya Yoneda was using the Team Yell Grunts, possibly even the boss's orders to slow down the opponent a little or make up for lost time, Takeshi is using this thin Malamar line and also the Gengar Mimikyu GX with Horror House that can stop the opponent for a turn. Also being used here is Hyper Potion, which you discard 2 energy from a Pokemon and heal 120 damage from it. I saw some lists with Mallow and Lana. Because this list is using the Malamar, you could potentially switch your Dragapult VMAX to the bench, Hyper Potion it, put the energy right back on with Malamar, bring out the Dragapult VMAX again, and start swinging with 120 less damage on you. So, this list is definitely different than Takuya's, but you'll see a similarity where they're both trying to slow down the opponent a little. Here, we're trying to slow down the opponent by healing our Pokemon and stopping them from playing cards for a turn with Gengar Mimikyu, whereas Takuya was a little more aggressive and streamlined with the Yell Grunts and just attaching manually every turn and using the Mind Report Mewtwo to get the Yell Grunt back potentially. So 2 very viable lists. I think we will see Malamar variants of Dragapult VMAX, but it's still a Dragapult VMAX focused deck. You're trying to spread damage, take multiple knockouts. This one definitely is a little different, though. It's not playing the Galarian Zigzagoon. It's not playing the Mind Report Mewtwo, so it's not playing the Scoop Up Nets for those cards. This next one is probably the most interesting out of all of them. This one I got from HowHowNews.com or Ho-Ho News. I've been told it could be pronounced like the Pokemon. But it runs the 4/4 Dragapult VMAX deck, so we're working with a Dragapult VMAX deck here, and it's a Roxy Greens version. So the kind of the skeleton of it almost looks like a Roxy Chomp deck, where they're playing the 4 Wheezing with the Bomb ability that when you discard it with Roxy, you spread a damage counter around to all of your opponent's Pokemon. And then it's also playing the thin Mismagius and Misdrevious line to pop it and make your opponent draw a card, or take a prize card and you draw until you have 7 cards in your hand. So this one I'm really interested in. So it's using greens, which greens has kind of fallen off in our Sword and Shield standard format here in North America, but there are a lot of item cards, a lot of trainer cards here you can get with greens exploration. It's using mixed herbs to heal the Dragapult VMAX, so again, we're seeing some type of way to slow down your opponent, and this could be a way you're healing the Dragapult VMAX, so damage your opponent did is now getting negated. And it's also playing Mallow and Lana to heal and switch. So I think the mixed herbs are really interesting here. The Roxy is a way to spread damage and draw cards, which is very cool. So you can spread 2 damage across to everything. And if you spread 2 damage on everything with Roxy discarding 2 Weezings, that means your opponent's Jirachis now only have 50 health left, and your Dragapult VMAX can snipe 5 damage counters to the bench any way you like. So even if you wanted to stay like behind on prizes for a reason, you could potentially leave the Jirachis there, just put 3 on each of them, and then next turn Roxy to knock 2 out, knock the active out, maybe clean up something else. You could take all 6 prize cards in one turn with this deck, which is definitely very cool. It's using both a reset stamp and the Marnie, 2 Marnies for hand disruption. I think the double reset stamp is very important with greens. Actually, it might only be 1 reset stamp. I think it's just 1 reset stamp. That's my bad. It's hard to tell because the cards are Japanese, but yeah, that's just 1 reset stamp. But reset stamp is very good with greens exploration. And then this one's also using Shrine, which the other ones were not using. Shrine, of course, can spread damage by putting a damage counter between turns on GX and EX, only GX in standard format, but this could be important on Dedenne. So like if you get a turn of Shrine on a Dedenne. That means using Max Phantom 3 times and putting the 5 damage counters on Dedenne every time would knock out a Dedenne. Maybe if you get 5 turns out of Shrine of Punishment, then you only have to Max Phantom your 5 onto Dedenne twice, which could be very good. You're also, of course, combining this with Roxy. So maybe a Roxy discarding 2 Wheezing and 3 turns of Shrine. Now you only have to put 2 Max Phantoms onto a Dedenne to knock it out. So this deck is a lot of cool things going on in this list. My issue with it is the consistency of drawing into energies. If you're playing greens every turn, are you drawing into your energies? So, like, of course, if you're playing the Roxys, you have a chance to draw into energy off of that. But energy is a worry pretty much with all the Dragapult VMAX lists. They are not playing Malamar, in my opinion. But Malamar isn't necessarily my favorite way to play it, so I think you just have to kind of hope you're drawing into your energies and playing enough. This list is playing 5, so it's not that low of an energy count. But definitely a very cool list. I do think Roxy variants of Dragapult VMAX are going to be played. Not sure if it's going to be with Green's Exploration, though, because the North America players have kind of, or pretty much outside of Japan players have kind of fallen off of using Green's Exploration decks. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video on Dragapult VMAX lists. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. Check out PotownStore.com, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.